So, what if I told you that a key part of the Bible might actually be a copy of a 3,000-year-old Egyptian text? Today, we're diving into a fascinating literary detective story, one that really challenges how we think about the book of Proverbs. And believe me, this is a debate between ancient scrolls that is still raging today. And that brings us to the big question, the one that kicks this whole thing off. Are we looking at a 3,000-year-old case of plagiarism in the Bible? The implications are, well, they're huge. To get to the bottom of it, we need to introduce the star of our show, an ancient Egyptian papyrus. Okay, so our story kicks off way back in 1888. This papyrus gets bought for the British Museum. But here's the crazy part. For decades, it just sat there, collecting dust. Its secrets were totally locked away. It wasn't until after World War II that scholars finally translated it. And what they found, well, it sent absolute shockwaves through the worlds of theology and archaeology.
So what exactly did they find that was so shocking? All right, let's get into the evidence that ignited this entire firestorm.
First, a little context. Both the Book of Proverbs and this Egyptian text, the Instruction of Amenemope, are part of a genre we call wisdom literature. You can think of it like the self-help aisle of the ancient world. These were guides on how to live a good, successful life, usually written like a father giving advice to his son. And this was a super popular style of writing all across the ancient Near East.
Okay, now take a look at this. This is where it gets really interesting. On one side, you've got Proverbs, incline your ear and hear, apply your heart. And on the other, the Egyptian text, give your ears to hear, give your heart to their interpretation. I mean, the parallel it's just undeniable. It's stunning, really. And believe me, it doesn't stop there.
Yeah, this goes way beyond just a few similar lines. The whole structure is kind of spooky. Amenemope, it's organized into 30 chapters. And what does the matching section in Proverbs mention? 30 sayings. Both of them use that classic father to my son format. And they both kick off with an introduction before getting to the good stuff. It really starts to look like one was a blueprint for the other, doesn't it? So with all this evidence piling up, scholars back in the 20th century came to a pretty direct and, let's just say, a pretty controversial conclusion. Listen to this quote from the famous Egyptologist Miriam Lichtheim, because it really sums up what people started to think. The idea was simple. The Hebrew scribe who wrote this part of Proverbs must have known about the Egyptian text and, yeah, to put it bluntly, he copied from it. So what was the main pillar holding up this whole argument? It really comes down to one thing: the dates. According to the standard historical timeline, the Egyptian text was written way back around 1250 BC. The Book of Proverbs, that's traditionally tied to King Solomon, who came centuries later. So if those dates are right, the case seems pretty closed, Egypt came first. But as you can probably guess, not everyone was buying it. Not by a long shot. This whole plagiarism idea was a huge challenge to traditional beliefs, and it sparked some serious and some pretty powerful counterarguments. Basically, three main alternative theories popped up to explain all these similarities without just yelling plagiarism. So let's break them down one by one. Theory number one is the common source idea. The argument here is, hey, maybe nobody copied anybody. Instead, what if both authors were just pulling from this big, shared pool of wisdom that everyone in the ancient world kind of knew about? It's like two different artists sampling the same classic funk song today. They're not stealing from each other, they're tapping into the same cultural well. Okay, theory two is all about purpose. It says, look, even if the form was borrowed, the message was completely transformed. Proverbs makes it crystal clear. The whole point of this wisdom is so that your trust may be in the Lord. Amenemope, though, that's all about how to get blessings from a whole bunch of different Egyptian gods. So the argument is that Proverbs takes the template and completely reframes it for a monotheistic worldview. And then we have theory number three. And this one is the real curveball. It asks a huge question. What if the timeline that everyone's been using is just plain wrong? Yeah, some researchers are actually challenging the standard Egyptian history, saying the dates we've accepted are off by hundreds of years. And if you look at this revised timeline, you can see just how much of a game changer that is. Suddenly, Solomon and Proverbs are older. Amenemope gets pushed forward in time. And if that's true, well, it flips the whole thing on its head. It would mean the Egyptians might have been influenced by the Hebrews, not the other way around.
So you might think this is just some stuffy academic debate, right? Wrong. This whole thing has had some really surprising, real-world consequences. Consequences that might even be sitting on your own bookshelf right now.
Okay, get ready for this, because this is probably the most jaw-dropping part of the whole story. We've got two different Bible translations of the same exact verse. The New King James Version looks totally normal. But then, look at the New American Bible. It literally says, "I make known to you the words of Amenemope." I'm not kidding. They put the name of the Egyptian author right into the biblical text. So you're probably asking, how on earth did they justify that? Well, the translators were so convinced that Proverbs copied Amenemope that they made a really bold and very controversial move. They looked at the original Hebrew words for today, even you, and basically said, you know what? This looks like a scrambled up, misspelled version of the name Amenemope. It's a radical decision, but it just goes to show you how powerful this theory became in modern scholarship. So, where does that leave us? Why is this mystery still unsolved? Well, it's because the right answer really depends on where you're coming from. It all hinges on which historical timeline you think is accurate. It depends on your own theological views on how the Bible was inspired. And it depends on whether you see these as totally unique texts or just two examples of a popular writing style. And all this leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Let's just forget about who copied who for a second. Let's think about the wisdom itself. If a saying is true, if it's genuinely profound and helps you live a better life, does its origin really change its value? Does it matter who said it first? That's something worth thinking about.